Morning everyone, and welcome back to the vlog. It's a bit of a chilly day here up in Scotland, so what I thought would be really good in this episode of the vlog is to go back through some of my favourite images of 2023. And not easy to do when you're looking back. We've been to so many amazing places this year, but I've narrowed it down to 10 with a couple of extras I've thrown in. If you're new to the channel, thanks very much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. And anyway, let's get started. So the first image from the two that didn't quite make it into the top 10 is from when we were over on the west coast of Scotland, spending the day in a rainforest, and we'd been there all day working our way through the forest, and we came across these two oak trees that looked like they were in mid-battle with each other. Here's the image. This next image is from a recent trip over to the west coast again, just outside an area called Glenfinnan. And as we were driving through, this whole area was absolutely covered in this stunning hoarfrost, which absolutely gave the whole landscape a real winter scene. It's in a fairly recent episode of the vlog. I've left links below in the descriptions for all of these images and all of the episodes that they actually appear in. And it was just one of those days where everywhere you looked was a stunning winter scene, and I got several images from that occasion, and this one just didn't quite make it into my top 10, but anyway, here's the image. So let's get into the top 10 favourite images of 2023. And this first image is from the Isle of Mull, where I spent the day down on the coast looking for dramatic coastal scenes. And I actually came away from this photo shoot with 3 images of a very similar shot, just in slightly different positions. And I compared the 3 images when I got back, and this was my favourite image from that shoot. The Cairngorms is a place that I like to revisit throughout the year, and this particular occasion we'd had so much snow and the ground was completely covered, and an area that I've been through several times before, the whole pathway through was absolutely covered in snow, and looking back there was some beautiful light coming through the trees. Now this is a scene that probably I've walked past so many times before and actually not really noticed, but the way that the snow gave the whole area a winter scene and feel to it just lent itself perfectly to this image. And I love the way that your eye is drawn through the scene to the light at the back. Here's the shot. One of the things that I often mention in my vlogs is that just how much gear I like to keep with me when I'm out visiting different places. And one of those pieces of gear that I always like to have with me is a macro lens. And on this episode of the vlog, we were revisiting some woodland areas to capture pictures of spring flowers. And this image of the stitch wart was just an image that really caught my eye. I loved the way that the soft petals and the plants behind really lended themselves to a stunning composition, which is quite hard to do when you're working in macro photography, where all of the elements come together. And this was my favourite shot from that episode. Another visit to the west coast, and this time on one of those stunning coastal beaches that you get over there, which always seem to be completely empty. You get these stretches of beautiful sand and sea with just nobody around. Incredible clear blue water. And on this occasion we were just walking along the beach looking at some different areas to photograph, and the tide was just going out with the rocks and the water lapping up down the side of them, and I managed to get right out onto the rocks and look back at the sweeping coastline just to give me a nice composition of the beach flowing through the image. Here's the shot. I can highly recommend looking back on your photos through the year and seeing the places that you visited and seeing the images that you came away with. See if there's places that you want to go back to at the different times of the year. I've often done that. I've maybe photographed a waterfall in autumn time, but then revisited in spring and got a completely different image. And it's not until you actually go back through your photos, you can really have a good look and decide whether there's something better there that you can go back for. So we're on image number 5, and this is one of those scenes that I went back to. I'd walked past before, seen the scene, walking across a small footbridge that goes over the River Tummel, and looking back I could see that some of the trees were going to really lend themselves to a stunning autumn scene. And sometimes it takes a number of times to go back just to see how the scene is changing, and with autumn it's very difficult to judge when those colours are going to burst into life. But fortunately this was one of those trips where everything fell together. I managed to get along the path and look back down through the river, and the trees were just a wash of colour. Here's the shot. Lots of different areas that I like to revisit over and over again, and there's a particular waterfall that I go back to that I really never divulge the location for. But one of the things that I really like about it is when there's not much water, where we haven't had much rainfall, it all dries up and we get these stunning rock formations that follow up through the falls. And at other times when we've had heavy rain, it's a completely different scene. Now when there hasn't been much rain, you can get down into the falls, really get low in amongst the rocks and get some stunning shots. The trees give off a beautiful warm light during the sort of spring and summertime, and you get those golden reflections in the water, and this is from that waterfall. This next image, image number 7, is from a trip to the Cowal Peninsula. where there's a stunning gorge. Now this was a difficult place to photograph because there are lots of footpaths and you do get a lot of people going up through there, but actually visiting it later in the year really benefited. There weren't many people around, but there was this beautiful, stunning green foliage and moss covering the place with some stunning light where it had been raining. And this particular image was one of those images where I wasn't sure when I was taking it whether it was going to work. I had a path on the right hand side, some fallen trees coming across the waterway, but there was this stunning ethereal tree up in the top of my image with light coming through. And actually I'm glad I took it, because when I got it back on the computer, it was my favorite image from that day's shoot. Here's the shot. This next image almost came about by accident. We'd had some incredible floods up in Scotland, and the plan was to head out and capture some of that stunning floodwater with trees and reflections within the fields. But it was quite obvious that there were a lot of places we weren't going to be able to get to because a lot of the roads were actually closed. But this particular scene we fell about by accident, an area that we'd driven past a few times before, but just caught our eye with some stunning autumnal colour. And everything just fell into place. Because of the flood water, the backfield had a lot of water reflecting that stunning image of the sheep in the background. We had these autumnal trees which form a tunnel through the gateway into the field, and that stunning light that hits that beautiful oak behind. It really all just fell into place. Here's the image. This next image takes us back over to the west coast where we spent the day in the hoarfrost, and this was the favourite image from that day that we came away with. And I have to say it was a difficult shot to get. We were positioned up on a bit of a hill trying to separate the tree from the mountain and those different areas of the scene. And I actually had in this image some very dark pines on the left hand side, which I was worried about whether that would really be drawing the eye too much into the image. So it was difficult to see, but when I got back on the computer, all the elements had just fallen into place. And I love the strip of light that's just breaking through that low grey cloud in the background. It wasn't long after we'd taken these images that I actually sent a print off to a lovely customer, and it's always nice to see your images in print, and it really did come out really well. So this is my favourite image from that shoot. My last image from my favourite top 10 photos of 2023 is a waterfall that I have revisited on a number of occasions throughout the year, just going back to see how different it looks in different seasons. And this was spring. We had stunning green colours in the foliage, the light was perfect, and I loved the balance in this image of the rocks in the foreground with the golden light capturing them and the stunning falls coming down, hitting those rocks and giving this beautiful light bright splash of colour. We were just fortunate to be there at that right time where the light was just coming in through the top, capturing the trees above, which really draws your eye up into the falls. Here's the image. that's it. That's my top 10 favourite images of 2023. Please let me know which was your favourite image. Leave me a comment below. I do enjoy reading all of your comments. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the notification button, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the vlog. Happy New Year to you all.